All the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?
And welcome to Where Am I to Go? Today we are in Deer Lodge, Montana. We are at the Montana Auto Museum, which is part of the Prison Museum and the Yesterday's Playthings Museum. They're all four different parts. We were with Heather through the Prison Museum, and today we are with Sherm, who is a curator of the Auto Museum. He also said that he owns about 90 of the cars that are in this museum. It's an honor to be here with Sherm and to be able to take this tour. If you want to know more about Deer Lodge, we talked a lot about Deer Lodge in the prison episode, about the surrounding areas, things to do here. And Deer Lodge is just a really cool place, just off of I-90 and halfway between Butte and Missoula. So come on, Sherm, let's go get started on the cars.
Well, as we walk through the museum, it's chronological.
Okay.
So we start here. This is the 1903. That's the first production model automobile that Henry Ford produced.
And now, was this done on assembly line
Yes,
format?
first one.
The very first
The
assembly line.
first year,
Okay.
1903.
Now, was he making cars prior to 1903?
Yeah, but not. They were more like a horse and buggy type thing.
Okay.
But this is the first production model. This particular one is serial number 101.
101. Okay. So
To my knowledge, there are only 3 of them left in existence.
wow.
So this one belongs to my wife and I.
And this car is just a basic car. It's got a front seat, a back seat, a steering wheel, a squeeze rubber horn.
Right under the seat is a little 8 horsepower motor. And if you looked on the other side, there's a crank. That's how they started it.
They started it from the back seat?
No, from the side.
From the side. Oh, okay.
There's a right there. See the little crank?
Okay. Yeah, it sits underneath that
Yep.
seat. Yeah.
It's a gasoline motor, 8 horsepower.
And it looks a lot like buggy construction as far as the
Yep.
seats look like Dr. Buggy seats.
Called this a tonneau, this back seat. A lot of them were just single seated, but
Okay.
and the wicker baskets and all that, that's all original stuff.
And had a top speed of about 30 miles an hour. That's
Yep. And then this is the only hard-wheeled one we have. It's Schacht and 1907. Same thing, little engine under the seat.
It looks like they basically took
This is the transition from a buggy to a car.
It looks just like they had a buggy and they
Yep.
put an engine.
Put a motor in it.
Yeah, and it's got the springs. The suspension on that goes from front axle to back axle all the way.
Mhm.
How does that ride? Have you actually had this one out?
I haven't driven it, but it rides good because it's got suspension under it. And
And the radiator. So that's a liquid cooled engine in this one. And the radiator's quite interesting looking. It's got the
coils straight up and down,
running up and down.
vertical instead of horizontal.
And what kind of light did this have? Was that a acetylene
Those
light?
are no, kerosene type.
Kerosene.
Same with these.
Okay. Cool.
And then we get up into the teens.
And they definitely start looking a lot more like cars
They
instead
did.
of like buggies.
And the history of these in here, they come out of a museum down in Texas.
Okay.
And an individual was getting up in age, and he called me and he said, would you be interested in my cars? Because none of my kids are interested. And I said, well, send me some pictures. And he sent me pictures, and I said, yeah, I would take some of them. So we bought the 1903, this one, this one, this one.
Can you tell me what they are as you're saying this
Yep.
one and this one? You've got the 1912
This is a Buick, and this is a 1913 Cadillac. This is what you would have saw the elite people right.
And this is really cool. It's got a roof cover on it.
It does.
But it's got leather straps coming down to
hold the top
deal
of
to
it.
hold the top forward. I guess the Buick has leather straps also. I don't know that I've really seen that before.
Yeah, that's just to hold the top from blowing off, basically.
Yeah.
But this one, like I said, would be unique for the era because it's a Cadillac. And a few of the features that I like is, you see this? That's
Right.
the exact same thing that Cadillac uses for an emblem today.
Right. And he's pointing out the headlights here that are probably 10-inch diameter headlights, and in the glass of the headlight, it has the Cadillac V-type symbol.
And this particular car, you know, back then, they had flat tires just continually. So all the cars carried spares. And this one is not unlike all the rest, except under the hood right here, hooked to the water pump, is a little air compressor.
In 1913 on a Cadillac.
1913. So that they didn't have to get out there and air up their tires like this. The people that owned these, they didn't like that. Didn't like getting out. And so they, and you always saw people in that era with coveralls on because they're dusty and everything else. But this one has an air compressor in there. Also has batteries and electric start.
Oh, really?
Along with the crank.
So were they one of the first to come out with electric start?
Early on.
Okay. And something else I'm noticing here is that these here are all right-hand drive, right-hand steering wheels.
Yeah.
Okay, what is the reason for the right hand? I read it in one of my car magazines. I think I read it in a Hemmings Classic
I think
car.
that I have no idea other than back then they were all single lane roads. In fact, they were just trails.
Actually, it's coming back to me
that
now.
they drove on.
Things are really hard to come back to me sometimes. But you know what they said is that buggies and all of that, they drove from the right-hand side. And since the driver sat in the right-hand side, when they started coming out with the cars, they were driving on the right-hand side. That is why they were right-hand drive. Just to put in your deal, or at least that's what they said. People were used to it. Yeah, and then they turned it over to the left hand because
at 1903 out front, that one's steered with a stick. So.
Okay, so it didn't have a steering wheel.
It had no steering wheel on that.
And now going back to the tires real quick, I read a book that was written by Eddie Rickenbacker, and he owned the Indianapolis Speedway at one point in time, but he was talking about the early days of racing, and it always took two people when they were racing because one person had to run an oiler to make sure that the top end of the engine was oiled, and so he was always coming over the front to oil the engine. And then he was also talking about having to watch the tires, and you were mentioning that they were always having flats. But he said that the tires were colored, or at least in his book, he was saying that the colors were the tires were colored, and that as they were running, if they went from blue to red or red to blue or something like that, you knew that you were running out of tread. You were going to have a flat right away. And so while they were racing, that was the navigator's job, was to keep track of the tires and the oiling and all of that, because he said that getting 100 miles out of a set of tires was pretty rare.
Good, yeah.
And I don't know if you've had much experience that way or heard much.
I haven't heard. I've never heard that, but
it kind of makes sense, I guess. I don't know why their tires weren't lasting.
There's a mixed batch here. You know, you've got the Cadillac, the Buick, the Hupmobile, and this is a Ford, and that's the Hupmobile.
The Hupmobile. What was the story with the Hupmobile?
I don't know the history of it. It was tied. Most of these were tied to different auto manufacturers, and they turned into something else afterwards, you know, like this one here.
He was a former employee of Oldsmobile and Ford. Okay.
And so then they wanted to compete. They built one that was very similar to the Fords.
Right.
But competed for a short period of time, couldn't afford to try to compete with Henry Ford.
The thing that's amazing about a lot of these old companies is there was so many of them. I mean, every bicycle manufacturer turned in, or buggy manufacturer turned into an auto manufacturer at some point in time.
Well over 100, 150 different manufacturers.
Now this Ford right here, it's a, what is it? It's a, I don't see the plaque on it, but it's got a horn
It's right here.
that sits off to the side of the steering wheel, and the air part before it gets to the horn from the squeeze tube, the rubber squeeze tube, is probably what, 5 foot long.
This is a 1910 torpedo.
Runabout.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And you
Cool
notice
looking
that
little
this
car.
one does have the wheel on the left side.
Right.
And then this one here, this Detroit Electric, has a history that I picked it up. It sat down in the Virginia City Theater
Oh, really?
for over 50 years in the lobby.
Wow.
And
okay,
then
now let's back up just a little bit here. You said this is a Detroit Electric.
Detroit Electric,
What year are we looking at?
1914.
1914. Okay, now folks, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a rampage. This happened the first time I came to this museum, probably 8-10 years ago. I'm standing here looking at an electric car from 1914. And the thing that's amazing about this is the speed was what, 25, 30 miles an hour. The car is bigger than a Model T.
Yep.
It went 80 miles between charges at 25 to 30 miles an hour. But they say that in a company-sponsored test, this car went 211.3 miles on a single charge. Now, we had electric cars in 1914. Actually, I've done some research. We had electric cars. The very first movable vehicle was a mine car in like 1870 or 1860. And so we've had these electric vehicles around. In fact, the first land speed records in the early 1900s were all done with electric vehicles. And Henry Ford's wife owned an electric vehicle.
And she wouldn't drive anything but an electric.
And why is that?
One thing, she was afraid of the internal combustion engine.
Okay.
She didn't like to have to crank it or even think about cranking it to
So
get it
you were able
started.
to just jump in this thing and go.
You just go. There's a battery pack in the front and a battery pack in the rear. And you just get in it and go.
And is this is driven with a stick or with a steering wheel?
With a stick.
With a stick.
And this is, you might say, is where the cliche of the backseat driver came from.
Okay.
Because you see the stick?
Right.
The long stick steers it. The other stick was your forward and reverse drive.
And you got one in the back seat.
So you could drive it from either seat.
And what would the purpose of
I
driving
have
it from?
no idea other than if somebody was too big, they wouldn't fit in the front seat. Maybe they did it in the back, or it was take over for a while I'm
sleeping.
watching the scenery, but it drives from either front or rear. It's fully enclosed.
Which was kind of an oddity for
Very
that
odd.
time.
It looks like Cinderella's carriage, actually.
Right, yes.
And fully enclosed, and the windows are roll up and down.
And did it have electric lights? It had electric
It
lights.
has
Instead of
the
the gas
battery,
light, instead
battery
of the,
lights.
instead of the kerosene lights or acetylene
Sure,
lights. that were
'cause
so
it has
popular at the
battery.
time. Yeah, this is just totally amazing, and it absolutely blew my mind when I saw this thing. I just stood here and marveled because
And the size of the tires, see how high they are?
yes,
So, and wider so that they roll easier. And
okay, and they kind of I think probably 1916, 1918 was about the last year of production for the Detroit. Well, for most of the electric vehicles, and from what I understand, the reason that they lost favor was they came out with the electric start, which in 1913 Cadillacs developed. And because of the electric start, people were able to get in their car and
Without
crank the engine
cranking.
over without having to get out and do the hand crank thing.
Yeah.
And so then, from what I understand, the marketing changed from the electric cars being futuristic or the way to go, it became the women's car. And when the man was buying the car for the household, why did he want a woman's car?
Yeah. Yeah. Henry Ford had no choice. She wouldn't drive anything but.
Okay, this is a sharp looking car, this 32 Plymouth Coupe.
32 Plymouth.
Now, was this part of your acquisition from?
That one is not. That's owned by an individual actually that manages the hospital out here.
Okay, that's a beautiful car.
This is a Hudson.
1929 Hudson. These cars are all just beautiful. You know, I look at these cars, and to me, they're works of art.
Yeah.
It's just amazing, the design, the things that they did to make these door handles, and the way that the tires and the spare tire straps on them, the lights and the hood ornaments. It's like going to an art museum to me.
And the innovations from one year to another. In 5 years, look at what kind of tires you got.
Right.
Them are very
big white walls.
Very similar to what you'd see today, except that they're not radial, they're the bias. But
right. We got a 32 Ford Phaeton. We've got 1941 Packard. Again, the Packard company was around for a lot of years. Their slogan was "Ask the man that owns one." And 1910 Overland, one of 15,000 produced in Toledo, Ohio, with a 4-cylinder engine. And again, Overland went out of business, or were they acquired by another company?
They were probably, most of them were all bought up by another company and then either just did away with, or this was I think there was a transport in the park.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
In 1913, it had Delco electric lights and starter. And this is a 1913 Cole. I have never heard of the Cole.
Yeah, they're just another one of those odd ones that went away, but I think they used it as kind of a small bus for...
It's got 2 seats and then 2 little swivel seats that are like kid seats or something in between the front seat and the back seat.
And we're located here on the Yellowstone Trail.
Okay.
Right out where the parking lot is.
Right.
And that old bridge.
Right.
That's part of the original transcontinental. They called it the Yellowstone Trail, but it was the only highway from Plymouth Rock to Puget Sound.
Puget Sound.
And it went right through Deer Lodge.
Yep. Wow.
And they called it the Yellowstone Trail because it went through Yellowstone also.
Okay. Now, was that also known maybe as the Lincoln Highway or in the future? Because it kind of followed that route to some degree.
I don't know what it changed into, but originally it was the Yellowstone Trail, and it was just a dirt road. But it crossed over this bridge, this old bridge that's out here. And then it went down the road where the rail track is. And
wow. And then you've got a picture here of something that I've seen on YouTube.
Yeah.
They have conventions every year where they take these old Fords and they put skis on the front and tracks on the back. And you've got a snow machine out of one of these old Fords.
Yeah, what other means of transportation would you have? Because nobody was plowing the roads, that's for sure.
Horse and sleigh.
That's right, horse and sleigh.
You've got a lot of neat old pictures here that early truck at a picnic.
That tell the stories.
Yes. Okay, then we're coming into another gallery.
This is one of Henry Ford's. He believed, this is called a farmer tractor. And it's just a Model T that he had these steel wheels built for, so you could actually farm with it.
And it's got a pickup bed on the back. It's just got the front seat. But yeah, these, if you've ever seen the old tractor tires that have the big gears in them and cleats on them, the wheels are all steel.
See the gear driven?
And it's gear driven down there, yeah.
Off of the differential.
So it's got your differential with the gears on it, and then it has a separate axle on the back that has the farm tractor. I bet that thing would go almost anywhere.
It would. And you could pull these out, pull it off, pull the gear off and put the tire on.
And then have a pickup
It's a
truck.
regular pickup truck.
And what year is this?
That's got to be a 1920.
1920.
Pretty good.
Form A tractor.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I
This is
bought.
designed for use with Model T Fords, was a Stod make a tractor. This was a conversion kit along with several other makes. It remained popular for several years as the poor man's tractor. The various models sold for around $225. The idea looked good, but these car tractor conversion kits were so unsuccessful that today it's difficult to find one, even as a museum piece. But it's here in your museum.
Yeah, this is one of them that I acquired from the Tao Museum when the IRS sold that Tao Museum off.
Okay. Yeah, this used to be
This
called the Tao Ford
Ford
Museum.
Museum.
And I think, in Sacramento, California, or it may have been in Reno,
there was
Nevada.
another one.
And they were talking about how they had acquired a lot of the cars from that
Well,
sale.
so he actually had this museum and the one in Sacramento,
Okay.
and they were almost duplicate cars in the two of them.
Okay.
And the IRS, when they came in, foreclosed on him and auctioned him off. They had the auction right here, and they were going to auction as many cars as it took to satisfy what he owed them. And it started out as a fairly small amount, but it ended up in the $3.5 million, $3.6 million, with all the penalties and interest. But
And of course, he had the assets.
he did, and this was part of them.
We got a 1917 Model T and a 24 Model T Roadster.
And then the
26
Chevy
Chevy Superior Coupe. The
Sedan.
27 Chevy Sedan. And by the 20s, they were closing in the cabs to
They
where
were.
not
Mhm.
everything was open. So it had to have been. Did they have heaters in most of these?
Mm-hmm.
They did have heaters.
This particular one,
We're talking the 1927
Yeah.
Chevy Sedan.
and I acquired it out of Wyoming, and it was actually a police car.
Oh, really?
When I bought it, it still had the star on the door before I restored it.
And what town in Wyoming?
Oh, I'm trying to think. Eventually, it ended up in Evanston, Wyoming.
Okay.
But that's not the town it come out of. And it's got the siren and everything still on it. And I restored it. The interior is original, but the rest has been restored.
Well, that's pretty cool.
We have a
That's the kind of car that was chasing Bonnie and Clyde.
yeah, close to it. Yep.
We got a 30 Model A coupe, just a single seat.
Yeah, this one's kind of out of sequence because and what people don't understand, that 1903 out there was a Model A Ford.
Okay.
Then he went to the S and the T and the K, and then or the T come after the S and the K, and then he went into the T's because he wanted everybody to be able to afford a car.
Right.
So he built them all black, very basic, like you see back
Right.
there.
And you've got the list price on that one. And they were selling for what? $500-$600?
Yeah,
Oh, list price, $265.
yeah, he
Which
wanted
is still a lot of money nowadays.
everybody to be able to own a car.
And then you've got an old
These are all Model
A pickup.
pickups.
Wow.
You don't see them like this one much. This is a convertible pickup.
It is. And what year is it?
It's a 29.
29 Roadster pickup. That's a sharp looking car or truck.
Yeah.
And then you've got a picture of one over here that somebody converted into a motorhome.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. It's a Model T camper, Deer Lodge 1920. Now, did he home make that, or was Ford producing some of
He
those?
homemade.
He homemade.
Built that over a truck. Model T truck.
Okay, now we got a display with all kinds of gauges and wrenches and light bulbs, all the there's a head in there, all the different gauges and
Just collectible parts,
Just
basically. Horns.
wow, in original boxes even.
Mm-hmm.
There's an old hand pump and a crank. Oh no, that'd be a lug wrench, I guess.
Yeah. Then we get into a little bit more classy here. This is the
Got a 1928 Hupmobile 4-door.
This is the late Model A.
31 Model A sedan.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my editor, Steve, the guy that edits all of this, he's got a fully restored Model A. I think his is a, what's your brother's car, 29 or 30? 30. It's a 30. Yeah. Yeah.
29 and 30 were very popular. But you notice how much they all look the same? And this is a Chevrolet.
Right.
That's a Studebaker.
Well, now you come to
Ford.
nowadays, you can't tell any of them
No.
apart. There's
Same thing.
Everything looks exactly the same on the road.
Everybody copied Henry Ford because they were so popular.
Well, you got a Woody here.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about Woodies, we're talking about a Model A station wagon that's...
This is a hack.
Oh, this one's the hack?
I think that's what they call them.
Okay. And you've got your front end that's made all out of steel, like the normal Model A, and then the back part is all made out of oak.
But it's a 3-seater.
Yes, it is. And it's got doors for the back seat. It's basically, I guess, the starting of the minivan.
Yeah.
But it's really cool to see all the woodwork that they did on them instead of doing steel bodies.
Yep.
Oh, this DeSoto's a sharp-looking car, too. We got a 1930s DeSoto Deluxe.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how much room that they had, like, for the back
Yeah,
seat.
it is.
Maybe the kids were just as obnoxious back then, and you had to get them further away from the driver.
These were maybe a little bit more of the... You're getting up in towards the gangster era, and they had lots of room in the back seats. And I picked that one up in an auction sale down in Arizona. Then this one we built in our restoration shop. In fact, I bought it.
Model A 2-door.
Bought it out of the town museum, and it used to be lime green, and so I restored it back to its original condition and color.
And now all three of these have the rumble seats in them.
Yep.
And the rumble seat, just if somebody doesn't know, it's a trunk lid that lifts up, and there's a seat sitting back there. So the driver and passenger are in the cab of a one-seat car that holds two people, and then you could pop the back up and have the wind in your hair or the rain in your face. Well, I'm sure that when it was raining, it wasn't pleasant with all the draft coming off the top of the hood. But
this one's rather unique over all the others. It's a cabriolet, and it's a slant window. The windshield slants instead of straight up and down.
And why did they do that?
It was just supposedly aerodynamic thing, but they've made very few of them. We just got through restoring this one.
It's a beautiful car.
We restored I think I brought it in here maybe 2 or 3 months ago.
Oh, so it's just been restored.
So we just finished it. It actually belonged to my wife's brother, and he in Cold Strip, and he got started on it, but all he did is got it tore apart, and it was scattered all over. And
I know how to do that.
he could never finish it, so he asked me if I'd be interested in finishing it. And I said, yeah, I'll finish it.
I got several projects that are in that stage, and getting them put back together is always a lot tougher than taking them apart.
Yes, it is.
Okay, now you've got a gas station here, it looks like, a service station with a lot of the old
parts in it.
Old parts, the old oil jars and
battery chargers, and you name it, it's in there.
Oil and testing machines, and a
little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. And then you've got an old, I'm guessing this is a farm truck, grain truck, one-ton grain truck, 1918 Ford Model T. Now, does it have it has the single wheels on the back? I've seen some of those with the double,
Yeah, duals.
the dualies. A 1928 International grain truck and a 1937 Hudson Power Dome engine, which is a 6-cylinder, I'm assuming.
Yep.
And the transmission's hooked onto it. You got a couple of feet warmers down here.
Yep.
Those are kind of a triangular box that you would heat up the brick on the wood stove or whatever, and then put it in there and close it up, and then you put your feet on it and maybe stay warm in some fashion.
This is what you would have saw the gangsters.
Ah.
This is a Franklin, 1932 Franklin, and it's air. It's an airflow.
Yes.
There's no radiator.
Now, is this a 6-cylinder engine?
Yep. And they preferred them because, you know, you could shoot all you wanted in there and you're not going to put them out of commission.
Right.
Because they're airflow. It's an airflow. They call it airman.
Now, I went to the Franklin Museum down in Tucson, Arizona. Before I was doing the podcast, so I don't have the podcast, but that museum was absolutely amazing. Every tour is personally guided. Have you been to that museum?
I have not.
Well, if you ever get down Tucson way, you need to go. But they had a 12-cylinder air-cooled engine. And of course, they have real ornamental grills where the radiator should go, so it would be deceiving. You know, you would think that you could shoot out the radiator, but the Franklin was just way ahead of its time, and the air.
See how
cooled.
much room there is in the back seat of that thing?
That one's got what, 6 feet in the back seat? You got lots of leg room.
Yeah, lots of room.
A 1932 Nash. I didn't know when Nash started. All I've ever seen is the bathtubs.
Yeah.
And then you got another an REO Speedwagon farm truck. Where did that group get their name?
Right from there. The REO Speedwagon is where they got their name.
Yep. That's a beautiful truck.
This one I bought out of Butte, Montana, and it was used for many, many years hauling refuge from the restaurants up to the pig farms.
Okay.
And a friend of mine called me and asked me, would you be interested in my uncle's truck? He died and it's in the garage. And I said, you know, I really don't want to do any more trucks. But I said, I'll come and take a look at it. And I can tell you about what the value is. Maybe we can find someplace where you could sell it. So I drove over to Butte, and it was in his garage, and it had been up on blocks since World War II.
Oh, needless to say, you didn't find another buyer.
And it was all intact. And
was it needing restored? Or?
Oh yeah, it needed to be restored. The box was gone, and I mean it was there, but it was all rotted and so on. So I bought it from him, brought it home, and restored it and back to its original condition.
It's beautiful. Like I said earlier, to me, this is works of art.
And now I've started putting spatterings of what's really popular today is the street rods.
Oh yeah,
That's
38 custom Ford Coupe.
Still original body, but the rest of it is not.
People really shame, the purists really shame these street rods. But
They
you know, I
do.
can guarantee if Henry Ford could have figured out how to shove a 700 horsepower engine into his 38 custom coupe, he'd have done it.
This one's all air ride, so I can adjust it any direction I want, up or down. And it's got a little Chevy V8 engine in it, and automatic. This one was before its time. This is the DeSoto Airflow, and they only made them for about 2 or 3 years, and then they went out of business. But
I don't think I've ever seen one of these. This car is really an interesting looking car. I'd strongly suggest anybody listening to this to Google the DeSoto Airflow. The grill on this thing is really unusual. The front end's really unusual. Everything about this car is really
It
unusual.
is.
It is just really neat. Yes, it's got split windows that tip out for airflow, I guess.
Yeah, lots of room in the back seat.
Yeah. It is really a cool looking car.
And
Really a rounded hood, which nobody was really doing at that time. Everything was pretty square.
No, as all of them, of mine anyway, most of them, they all have their own little story. And this one, a guy in Whitehall had built it, refurbished it, and he had 6 cars in here, I think. And then he died. And so his vehicles were still in here because his wife was alive. And she called me one day and said, hey, would you be interested in his cars? And I said, well, yeah, I'll come over and see you over in Whitehall. So she was probably in her 80s, I think, but pretty sharp gal. And she said, we sat down at the kitchen table and she said, well, what do you think? Because he had 16 other vehicles over there in his garage. And then he had a bunch of them outside that were parts cars for all these ones he had built.
Right.
And I said, well, I'm interested primarily in the 6 that are in the museum. And that's all. And I said, do you have any idea what you want for them? And she pulled out this piece of paper that he had written before he died with all the prices on them. Well, in a case like that, there's no dickering or anything else. You just look at them, and if they're reasonable, this was one, that black Buick back there. And I said, okay, I'll take them. I'll take the 6. And, but I said, I'm not interested in the other stuff you got out there and so forth. And so she said, okay. And I wrote her out the check. And she said, you know, because you are such a nice guy, I'm going to give you those other 16. And I said, no, you're not. I don't want them. And she said, you're going to take them. And I had to pay a guy to come in and clean up that whole yard.
Because you were such a nice guy.
Those old vehicles. And I thought she really pulled one on me.
Okay, we got a 1935 Ford V8 Phaeton. Okay, that probably has the flathead V8 in it.
Mm-hmm,
and the flathead came out what year?
1931 or 2, wasn't it? Or 30?
I don't know. I was just curious
somewhere in that area, in that era.
Okay, and the flathead V8 again was something that really pushed the Fords forward. Yep. That was a big selling point.
Yep. This 38 has a flathead in it. That was
and this 38 is another Woody.
Yep.
Again, you got your metal fenders and stuff, and oak for the main part of the body.
And that one was in the Tao Museum.
Okay.
Totally in pieces.
Oh, really?
And they had it hanging up on racks because it was to display how you rebuild or refurbish a vehicle. And so there was none of it done.
So did you follow the instructions?
I bought it, and we put it in the shop, and I think it took us 5 years to restore it. But everything in it is original. It's got a little bitty radio in there.
Oh, really? In 1938?
See it down there?
Yep.
The 2 little knobs.
Yep.
And the antenna, there's a knob up there, and you flip it, and it goes up. For the radio.
Wow, you wouldn't have thought that, or I wouldn't have thought that the 38 that would have had radios. And then over here you've got a 48.
The 48.
Woody.
And this one, the story behind it was purchased brand new by MGM.
Okay.
And they bought it to make the movies, the beach movies in the 50s
Okay.
and early 60s. And then when they got through with it, it was always inside, always kept it inside. When they got through with it, they sold it to one of the stagehands.
Okay.
And then he lost it in a poker game.
Wow.
And then it ended up in the hands of an individual from the Department of Revenue for state of California. And he had it. And then he started driving it as just a beach bum car because he was retired then, and he had his surfboards on it and everything.
I was going to say, it's got surfboard racks still on it.
And then he died, and it was always housed in though. But of course, him driving it, it was beat up. The metal parts were beat up, but the wood was like this. And his son ended up with it, and his son lived in Helena.
Okay.
His son called me up and he said, "Hey, would you be interested in my dad's car?" He said, "I have no sentimental value to it." And I said, "Well, send me some pictures of it." And what is it? And he told me and sent me some pictures. And I said, it was in a warehouse down in Southern California. And I said, I'm interested in it, but I don't want to drive clear. I don't want to fly clear down to Arizona or California and look at it. So he said, "Well, I've been going to bring it up here." And I said, "Well, I'll pay half the freight, you pay half the freight. If it gets up here and I like what I see, I'll buy it. If I don't, I'm out half the freight and you got your car." So they shipped it up here and unloaded it, and it was all intact. The body was a little beat up, but the wood was in good shape. And so we put it in the body shop and refurbished it. And that's the history.
Wow. It's amazing the way some of that stuff comes together.
Yeah. And so now it...
and I'm just looking at this. This one here is just unbelievable.
LaSalle.
This 1935 LaSalle two-door coupe. It's got the vents coming down the side.
This is owned by...
The body is just super sleek. It's got the suicide doors.
This is owned by a gentleman in Helena.
Really neat hood ornament. This is one classy looking car. What did it have for an engine? 105 horsepower, 248 cubic inches.
Yeah.
It's So it wasn't much. It wasn't nearly as fast as what it looks. I'm sure. It's pretty sleek looking car. Then we got a 36 Buick Special Business Coupe. I've always liked the way the business coupe back ends are shaped. And then you've got a 36 Hudson, and then a Cozy Camp pop-up trailer from 1933. Now, isn't that a work of art? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks a lot like the modern day pop-up campers, all except
it's not much different. It's just a little tattered and torn, but same old.
The same basic principle. The lid lifts up and the canvas comes out. Wow. You got some nice pieces here.
Everybody who tours this museum, when I'm around and I happen to see them, they say, "What's this thing doing in Deer Lodge, Montana?" And I said, "Well, that's where I live."
Yeah, exactly.
This was part of that woman's collection, this old Hudson.
49 Hudson. And
that was one of the 6 that I wanted. But it was so funny how she knew from the very beginning what she was going to do.
Thermador car cooler on this 50 Plymouth. And these car coolers are pretty neat deals. I've seen them a couple of different places.
When I was a kid, I can remember those.
But they attach to your window, or they attach to the drip rail?
Attached to the drip rail up underneath.
And they hang out the side of the car. And
the air went around, and all it did basically was circulated the air from the outside in and out.
But you thought you were air conditioned? You didn't have to have your windows rolled
It was
down.
a
and you
lot
still
better
got-
than it was a lot better than rolling the window down.
Yeah. And the big old, it's about, it's a tube that's probably 6 inches in diameter and about, 16
12,
inches long.
16 inches,
And it just
yeah.
hangs on your drip rail right by your window. And as the air comes through, it turns that fan, like what he's saying, and blows air inside your car. You've got a whole set of Lincolns here. You got this is a Lincoln V12 convertible. It's a beautiful car. And so it has the V12 in it.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the displacement on the V12? 305 cubic inches. It's amazing to me when you look at some of these old cars. They got these V12s, V16s, and they had 350 cubic inch displacement.
Very little horsepower.
Very little horsepower, yeah. The horsepower, 130 horsepower. You know, you're talking the Chevy 350 has 350 cubic inch, and they can, well, I guess stock they were pushing, 250 horsepower?
Everybody was trying to get the niche, you know.
Right.
And so they'd come up with something different. And
then you got a 1950 Mercury Coupe street rod.
It's been kind of street rotted,
It's been chopped. And what chopped means is that the pillars have been cut off and the top's been lowered. So your front windshield, instead of being 20 inches tall, is about 12 inches tall.
Yeah, it's a very similar car to this one.
Yeah.
But this one's original and that one
has been chopped.
Is a chop job.
And they look cool.
Yep.
Then you got 51 Packard 4-door. Again, we haven't seen a Packard yet, I don't think. No, Packard. Yeah, you got another Packard over here. Ask the man that owns one. Here we go. The 54 Studebaker Land Cruiser. This is the first Studebaker we've seen.
Yeah, and this one has very few original miles on it. It's less than 100,000 miles. I can't remember what the mileage is, but it's in really nice condition.
It is.
But it's all original.
Studebaker was a really big car manufacturer for a lot of years. And in fact, you got another Studebaker here. They used to have some of those with superchargers on them in the early 60s, I think. I went to the Studebaker Museum in South Bend, Indiana. And they have the very last Studebaker to have rolled off the line, 1964, sitting in there, along with a lot of their concept cars. And Studebaker, at one point in time in the early 60s on the Lark, they were debating about putting Porsche engines in them. So I'm walking along, and here's a Studebaker with a Volkswagen engine sitting in the back, and I'm going, what in the world is this? But they actually toyed with the idea of merging with Volkswagen a little bit and putting some air-cooled engines together. Got a 51 Mercury 4-door. Ooh, this Pontiac
51. This is another one that somebody died and it ended up in the daughter's hands, and then she put it up for sale and I wanted to buy it, and we could never come together. And then all of a sudden one day she called up and said, "You still want that car?" And I said, "Sure I do." And she said, "Okay." So we made a deal. And
this has the old, I don't know if I want to call it an Indian or a Native American head on the front of the Pontiac.
It lights up.
It does light up.
It does light up.
Yes, it's a hood ornament that kind of comes all the way from the windshield out to
it was
the long hood.
Hooked up with your headlights.
With your headlights.
When you turn them on, there's
and it's an amber colored Indian head, and it's really neat looking hood ornament.
That's why I put
these cars were so beautiful.
Personalized plate on.
Oh, did you? Chieftain. Yeah, there you go. But it is a Chieftain. It's a Pontiac Chieftain coupe.
It is.
And you know, something else that's really cool about a lot of these cars from this time period is the amount of chrome. The shine on all the interior parts, the exterior parts.
Now you're entering my realm.
Your realm.
This one you mean, or this one? This is my room. This is my room also. I grew up with a 55 two-door hardtop Chevrolet that I had all through high school. I had 3 different engines in it, 3 different paint jobs. So these are my favorites.
Just
So my wife and
every
I,
era is beautiful
They
until you
are.
get to 80?
yeah, my wife and I own all of these.
All of them.
Beautiful.
We got two 55 Chevys here, three, then we go into 56.
Matching
255.
colors. One's
Yes, they
convertible,
are.
one's
They're red and white
hard
with all the
top.
chrome. Convertible hard top.
This one, this 56, came stock from the factory with two AFB 4 barrels on it.
Two
Two
4 barrels.
dual fours.
Wow. Yep, 56 Bel Air convertible, 56 Bel Air 2-door hardtop, 57 Bel Air, and we got a Nomad.
Right there.
The Nomads have always been one of my absolute
Yeah.
favorite cars. They're
I
just
picked that one up at an auction in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
it's beautiful, black.
Beauty.
Yeah.
The 56 Bel Airs are black and yellow, both painted up the same.
They called them the Bumblebee
The
color.
Bumblebee that's a stock color.
hmm
Okay.
And then this one is probably the nicest one in here.
This 57
Yeah.
Bel Air
This one,
convertible.
they're all original.
Okay.
But this one, it scored like 990, what was it, 998 out of it. Yeah, 999 out of 1,000
Wow.
by Super Chevy. And it 57, that was when they put the fuel injection on them
Okay.
in the Corvettes.
Right.
Then they started to put them in the big cars. This is the number 6 or number 5 fuel injection.
Okay. I did not realize that they were putting fuel injection
Yeah.
in these things in 57.
Yep, they're fuel injected. And
We're opening the hood. Oh, now isn't that interesting? That is really interesting.
yeah,
The fuel injection, the air cleaner sits off to the driver's side, and then the carburetor, well, it's not carbureted.
no,
This isn't an EFI.
no, it's
This is
fuel injected.
full-blown fuel injection.
Fuel injected.
And everything
choose-
comes on over into the intake manifold. And
Yeah,
what's this canister on the other side? Is that a pressure tank or is that the fuel
that's just
pump?
part of the fuel pump system for the fuel injection.
Wow.
This was the
And
first.
this is stock.
Yep, stock in 57. This is this number 5 or 6 fuel injection. Let's see.
And this is a convertible.
And it was the number 18. That was the 18th body to come off the assembly line
Wow.
in Lansing.
And the license plate says Fuel E.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
And this one also is fuel injected.
Really?
And that one's also fuel injected.
So you got 357 Chevys. You've got 2 of them are convertibles. One of them's red with just lots of chrome. The other ones are, what color of blue is that? It's kind
That's
of a turquoise blue.
Turquoise blue.
And one of them's a convertible. One of them's a hard top. Oh,
And the history behind, or part of the history behind these 357s and that 155 convertible over there is that gentleman. I've got that memorial.
uh-huh.
He was from Butte, Montana, and he was a 55, 56, 57 fanatic, just like I am. And he had these all built by a professional restoration shop.
Wow.
And then prior to his death, he come over with this one. This was his favorite, and wanted to know if I wanted to buy it. And I said, sure I do. And so we made a deal, and I can remember when he rolled it out of the trailer and tears were coming down his cheeks.
Oh, I'll bet.
And because he had cancer. And then after he died, then his wife came to me a year or so later, and she said, you know, I don't want the kids to end up with any of these cars because they won't take care of them. They'll sell them. And so I bought all he had,
Wow.
put them in here.
And yeah, this is beautiful. It's nice that I like to see collectors like you have these things on display because, you know, even museums. I went to the museum in Hershey, Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
which is a really neat museum. They've got 6 or 7 of the, what's the car with the headlight? Tuckers.
Yeah.
They got 6 or 7 Tuckers there. That's their big claim to fame. I walked around there and I said, yeah, never put a van in a place like this. And the guy says, well, we have a van.
Huh.
I says, you've got a van. Where would that be? He says, well, it's down in our basement. I says, down in your basement. Can a person go down and see that? And he said, well, for an extra $10 you can. I says, here's my $10. Let's go. Well, we have to have a special guy take you down there and show you these things.
Yeah.
I said, okay, well, here's my $10 and let's go see it. So they gave me my own personal guide because we had to go down there. And just down in the warehouse in the basement, they've got all the cars that anybody donates. If somebody donates a car, an estate donates a car, they have to hold it for 3 years.
Yep.
Before they can determine what they're going to do. And in order to keep the doors open to the museum, they'll either sell them at the Carlisle auction or something like that in order to get the money. Well, there's all these cars. There was more cars in the basement than what there was in the museum. And it wasn't organized. It didn't have the nice little ropes, but the cars were absolutely fantastically amazing. And all I know is every time I go to a car show or car museum, I say, where's the basement?
Yeah.
And I give you $10 and go see the basement because that's where the good stuff is.
That is a fact.
And you know, and then these private collectors buy all this stuff that they sell to keep their museum going that was donated. And it goes into a private collection and it's never seen again. It's just, you know, it is sad. And I love to see that you've put this all together and have it open to the public to where we can see these.
This particular one is not all stock.
But it's pretty.
This is the street rod we built over in our shop, and it's got a 502 with nitrous.
Oh, really?
And
so it's slow.
It's very slow.
Wow.
It's.
So do you take it to Anaconda to the drag strip?
I don't. You know, I used to take it to car shows, and now I just brought it in here for displaying.
This is kind of like the ultimate car show, a daily opportunity.
Yeah, we're trying to get it, you know, to entice the younger folks.
Oh, absolutely.
And this thing's a bright purple, plum purple, I guess.
It was. I decided I wanted purple, and so my wife and I picked it out. Then we decided we wanted a purple interior.
Oh.
And the only one who produced a light purple leather was Porsche.
Okay.
So we bought the leather from Porsche, and an individual over in Clarkston, Idaho, or Washington, Clarkston, Washington. I took the car over there, and he built the interior. I told him, I want 2 bucket seats, but I want them low. I don't want the high back. I want the back seat to look like buckets, but it's a full bench.
Right.
And he had it for 4 months, I think, and he called me up and said, your car's done. And I went and looked at it, and it just blew me away because the little details of it were just incredible because he was one of these creative minds. And he built the seats out of fiberglass.
Uh-huh. He custom made everything.
Custom made everything
Wow.
in there. And up in the headrest, there's a detail of, it's like 3 rectangular things, and the same detail is in the door panel.
Okay.
Or the door panels, yeah. And I thought, how did he ever come up with that? And then it dawned on me one day, when I opened up the door of the 57 Chevy, and that metal is the same detail that he used for the interior and the door panels.
That's awesome.
You got a 59 Dodge Coronet over here, and this is one of the finned cars.
Yeah.
It's got the big fins. It's a 4-door, and they kind of call those bubble tops, don't they?
Yep.
And then you've got a DeSoto Fire
DeSoto.
Dome,
And
64
You were
Wildcat.
talking about Packards. That's a Packard back there.
Oh, okay. Wow,
And-
I thought that was a Citron when I first was looking at it from over there. That's really got a strange front end.
That's an unrestored one.
Wow. What year is that?
It's right here.
Right there, 58
58
Packard Hawk. Boy, that's got a strange looking front end.
It's like a face.
Again, it's got the fins. You've got an Edsel.
That one I bought at the Tau Museum or Tau auction, and that was owned by the first woman congressman
Oh, okay.
in the U.S. Congress. She lived here in Montana, and it's only got about 30,000 miles or
Now,
something.
were most of the Edsels 4-doors? That's about the only thing I've ever seen.
No,
I've never seen a 2-door
They
Edsel.
make a 2-door
They did?
hardtop. Mhm.
Okay.
But
And-
this, I'm trying to think what her name was.
Now, Edsel was
Right
made by
there.
Ford. Edsel
Rankin.
was Ford's son, right? Or grandson?
It was, I was thinking it might have been his brother.
Maybe it was his brother. I don't know. I just know that Edsel was tied in. I think it was somebody's son. Well, of course it was somebody's
Yeah.
son. That's a pretty broad statement.
It might have,
But,
it might have been his grandson, but I thought it was his brother, but I'm not positive.
Okay.
It'd be,
But it wasn't a great success. They
No.
only had them for 3 or 4
No.
years, and
they weren't very successful. They're not really very highly sought after collectors even.
right.
But they are kind of coming on a little bit more.
Okay, and then you got your 58 Chevy here.
Yeah.
And they changed the body style quite a bit between the 57 and
Changed
the
them a
58.
lot, and these have the 348 tri-power, the 3-carb.
3 carburetors. Oh, wow. Look at the size of that air cleaner.
It was a 348 cubic inch,
And it had one air cleaner for all 3 cars.
all 3 carburetors.
That is really interesting.
This was the
They
first.
slanted the windshield quite a bit more on this one, it looks like.
Yeah,
A little bit lower profile.
you know, they weren't all that popular because they were such a great big boat, but they did have a lot of power, and they're pretty classy looking vehicles.
It is. In a lot of ways, it's a little bit sleeker than like the
Uh-huh.
57 as far as however
Yeah.
you would use the word sleek. You got a 77 Grand Fury police patrol car, 63 Galaxy XL. Is that a 4-door? Yes, it is.
Yeah,
63 Thunderbird. I've always liked the Thunderbirds. That
Yeah.
57 Thunderbird is just
Fif-
top notch.
56 is my most
Your favorite
favorite, and that's that turquoise over there.
over there?
And this one is a 1960, and it's got the 348 tri-power also.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
And it's a convertible also.
Mhm.
And on these ones, they
Only
started
this-
putting the fins sideways instead
This
of
one
lengthwise.
has the Muncie 4-speed in it.
Oh, really? So this thing was a go-getter.
Yeah.
And this is a Chevy Impala is what
Yep.
you got here.
Mhm. All of them totally original.
You got the Ford Falcon Futura and the 66 Mustang.
It's one of my wife's favorites here. She named this one Topless.
Convertible,
Yeah, that's what we got on the
bright
plate.
red.
It's cute.
And what year is this? 66. They came out with the
66.
Mustang in 64.
64 and a half.
64, okay.
I've got one of them in my garage at home.
Oh, do you?
Mhm. A convertible. All
Okay.
original. This is the 302.
Okay, and the
And
69 Ford
19
Mustang.
and that
Grande.
little car just flies. It's not quite original. The engine has been blueprinted, and it just flies. It's got lots of horses.
And then you got the 70 Mach 1.
Yeah,
Those were quite the cars, too.
yeah.
And then
And I had a guy
67
inspect
Fastback.
that one for originality,
Uh-huh.
who is a Mustang expert. He looked it all over and he said, everything on that car is absolutely perfect, except the alternator, and it's off by a few serial numbers.
Oh, really? So this is the numbers matching all the way through, except your
All the way
alternator.
through except the alternator,
Wow.
and it's obviously been changed.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Then
we got the
chronologically, this is a 64.
Impala.
I bought this one because that was the year I graduated from high school.
You know, I've always been really partial to these 64
Yeah.
and 63 and 64 Impalas.
Yeah.
I think that they're super classy looking cars. And then the Oldsmobile 442.
Yeah,
Now, is this one here a real 442 with
It
four on the
is.
floor,
Yeah.
dual exhaust, and
it's a
four-barrel
442.
carburetor? They really warped that when they started putting automatic transmissions in them and some of that. But
Convertible.
yep. And I've always really, really liked these 67
Cougars.
Mercuries, the Cougars. Yes,
Yeah.
those Cougars. I think they took the Mustang and improved.
Yeah.
I just like the body style a little bit better. 58 Cadillac Eldorado. Wow. Now that's an interesting looking car. That whole front end,
It is.
that's real. I don't know if I've ever seen one of those before.
Yeah.
All leather interior, but the hood doesn't come over the front
No.
of the grill. It opens up back behind, and the grill sits really low.
Yeah.
And the bumper is massive.
Big boat.
That's another one I'd suggest looking up on Google just to see the front end on this thing. It's the 58 Cadillac Eldorado. 70 Oldsmobile Cutlass. That's really pretty.
Little Dodge
And you got your
Dart.
Lincoln Continental, 67. The Dodge Dart Swinger, real pretty lime green with the 340. Those aren't doing anything but jumping in value on a regular basis, are they?
Yeah. I think I bought that one at the same auction I bought that black 57 Nomad.
Okay. Then we got a 67 Camaro, a 68 Camaro Super Sport convertible.
And this is the Copo that was built for racing, 427. Ride like a truck.
Oh, does it?
Oh,
But it rides fast.
real stiff suspension, but
Okay, now what is Copo?
that was the Copo, the Yankos.
Okay,
You ever
I'm
heard of
familiar
that?
with the Yankos. In fact, I was driving through Vermont one time.
Well, Copo's the same thing
Okay,
as the Yanko.
right.
All they were was a dealership. Certain dealership named Yanko.
Right.
They special ordered from Chevrolet, and it put a different striping on them, and they called it the Yanko Camaro
Okay.
for that dealership.
Right.
Same way with
but
Copo.
the dealership, when you're saying special order, that dealership would take the Camaro or whatever the car was, and they would order it with the biggest motor that
Yeah.
Chevrolet made that wasn't available to
And
anybody else.
it was the only one that had 4 disc brakes on it,
right.
when the others only had 2. And it was just the dealership. It was
Yeah,
the
but they
Yanko
special
dealership.
ordered, and they'd have to make, I think, 100 of them in order to get. And so it was a special order deal. This, like I was saying,
Yeah.
in Vermont, I was stopped to look at a Corvair van that was parked in somebody's yard, and I was looking or pulled off, and he came out of the house and he says, "Oh, well, let me show you something." He pulled me into his garage, and sitting in his garage, he had number 3 Yanko Corvair, 4-barrel carbs, hopped up engine. He said that they were racing in them against Porsches and that type of stuff, and they were smoking on the Porsches at the time. In fact, I think they took him over to Europe and took him to a lot of different races. But he said Yanko had to order 100 of them in order to do what he was going to do, to get the special components, the hopped up transmission and disc brakes and all of that kind of stuff.
The Copo was built strictly for racing. There is absolutely no frills in it. no radios, no nothing. It just 427, 4-speed, stiff suspension. It was made to race.
And where was Copo out of?
I
haven't
don't
heard of it.
know.
Okay, because Yanko, I think, was out of New York, wasn't he?
I
Or
don't know.
Connecticut.
Yeah.
Someplace there, back east.
This particular one is not stock. It's got the LS engine.
Okay, and it's a
Corvette
68
engine.
Camaro.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got the 70 Chevelle Super Sport with the 454.
450 horse. You know, this one is very popular with a lot of the visitors because of the color, the striping, and yeah. Do you?
The 70 Chevy El Camino.
And that one's all original 396 with the Muncie 4-speed.
I loved mine.
And then the 74 Pontiac Trans Am. This looks like a Gen 2. I thought that 73 was when they cut off the Gen 2 on the Firebirds.
Don't know.
It must be 74. You know what I'm talking about with the way the back window's shaped. Because after 74, I guess, I was thinking it was 73. After 74, they slanted that back window to where it wrapped around instead of just being in the back.
And then this one.
The one that's not there?
This is the Challenger convertible.
Okay.
I think with the 383. It's a original.
Nice car.
And then
I didn't know that. Yeah.
That's the Hemi Cuda, 70 Hemi Cuda. And this one I haven't brought in yet. I've been waiting for the weather to change, but this one is a 70 Superbird.
Oh, okay.
And
then the Superbird had the big fin on it, the extended front end.
Mm-hmm. They were 17 and a half feet long. And they only built, this particular one, they only built 308 of them.
Okay.
Because it has the 440 6-pack 4-speed.
Okay, 6-pack is?
Three carburetors.
Three carburetors, yeah.
6 barrels.
Yep. Here's another Cougar. A 70 Cougar Eliminator.
The GTO.
And this is a Judge tribute. Okay. And some of these things that we're talking, the Judge was another package. It was set up just for racing.
Yep.
And it's kind of the collector of collectors with the GTO crowd.
Yeah.
And a 72 Charger.
And a 383 Super B.
383.
Almost everything in here belongs to my wife and I. All of these.
Okay. Yeah, super nice cars.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Plymouth Roadrunner, 1969.
This one here was the Gone in 60 Seconds.
Oh,
Chip Foose. He built 5 of those cars.
This is a 67 Ford Mustang GT500.
He built 5 of them for the movies.
Okay.
So when he built this one, he autographed the visors.
Okay.
And I have pictures of, he was the first one to drive around the racetrack.
Okay. Wow.
And it had the Go Baby Go button and the nitrous in the trunk and Nicolas Cage, that movie.
Wow. We got a Chevy Nova 67 Super Sport.
Yeah, and this is another one that's street rotted. It's got a 383 stroker in it, and I'm telling you, it just flies.
Bright yellow, beautiful.
And it turns greenish tint out in the sun.
I can almost see that here. You can see the shades wanting to turn as you're looking at it.
When I stomp on that one, it just lays you back in the seat. You can't pull yourself away from the seat.
Yeah, these old Novas have always been a favorite with me too.
This is another one that's got the
This is a 70 AAR CUDA.
with the sick pack.
And it's green with the black hood and, well, the whole top of the fenders and everything's black, and then it's got black stripe that's interrupted with green going all the way down the side. Beautiful. And then back here in the corner, you got what? An old
Dodge,
Power Wagon, 55
Dodge
wagon.
Power Wagon.
Those were supposedly the ultimate four-wheel drive.
Them are really popular.
Does it have the
now.
winch? Yes, it has the winch on the front.
Extremely popular.
And they made those for a lot of years. I think that body style was popular for like 30 years.
A lot of years, yeah.
And then a Diamond T logging truck, 1935.
Yeah, we built.
Diamond was another. They did a lot of fire engines and a lot of big trucks.
Yeah, I built that one in the shop over there because it had a grain box on it. We took the grain box; it was all rotted, and took it off, put the logging bunks on because that's what we were, a logging company. So,
Right. Yeah, you were saying that you owned a logging company and a sawmill and some of that. Besides all these cars.
Yeah, I couldn't have the cars if I didn't have those.
Okay, this here's a 65 Shelby Cobra replica car.
Yeah.
And is this one of the Tri-5s or is this another kit?
This one is one that I'm going to pull the engine out and put the regular 427 in it.
Okay.
I haven't yet, but it has a 351 souped up. But
okay. Now, there's a museum down in Phoenix, Arizona. I think it's called Martin Auto Museum. They've got one of the original Shelby Cobras signed by Shelby with 6 stinking original miles on it.
Oh my gosh.
How do you do that? How do you have something like that in your collection that doesn't have 30 miles on it?
Yeah. You know, I think I was at Bear Jackson when they sold that car.
Really?
In Scottsdale, Arizona.
Years ago or somewhat
Not
recently?
very long ago.
Really? Because I saw this probably 5-6 years ago, and I was just standing there going, "How do you have a Shelby Cobra that has 6 original miles?"
Yeah. Well, it can be one thing about that. I believe they found a bunch of Shelby Cobras that had never been assembled.
Oh, okay.
And they found them in some warehouse, and they assembled them, and Carroll Shelby oversaw the construction on them and signed them.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see, I was at the Auburn Museum in Auburn, Indiana, Cord Duesenberg in Auburn, and they've got a Tucker in there that's number 52.
Yeah.
And the little plaque on it says there was only 51 Tuckers made. This one was made with parts afterwards.
Yeah.
And so it's got number 52 stamped on it.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of funny when people are all into Tuckers and you say, "Yeah, I saw number 52," and they go, "What?"
Oh, I'm trying to think if this one was. I had it in my head that this one was autographed by Carroll Shelby. I can't remember now. This is my favorite T-Bird.
This is your 56?
Mm-hmm.
Little port window in the back, 2-seater. The 56,
Continental kit.
55, 56, and 57 were 2-seaters.
Yeah.
Basically designed to compete with the Corvette.
Yep.
And yeah.
Didn't quite get as popular as the Corvette, but now they are.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Beautiful, beautiful car. And then here's one, a little Nash Metropolitan.
My wife's brother, he's a little short guy, and this is still his favorite car in the whole museum.
Really?
Is this Metropolitan.
I don't know if you're interested. There's 4 of them, unrestored, sitting on a lot in Thermopolis, Wyoming. I don't know what kind of price he has on them, but between the 4 of them, you should be able to put one of them together.
Yeah.
But a body shop down there has them sitting out in front and all lined up. But these here, there was a board game that had the Metropolitan as one of the game pieces. What do you remember? What game that was?
I don't.
I keep wanting to think it was Life. but I don't know if
I
that's.
can't remember.
But yeah, and Nash was another one of those car companies that they kind of got a bad rap in a lot of ways. They came out with basically a bathtub with an engine in it, and everybody always associated Nash with that. But then it turned into the Rambler Corporate, or was bought up by Rambler, and then was bought up by AMC, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking that's the way it worked. Then you got the 55 Ford pickup. Those are always classy. And a root beer brown.
Yeah, this one
beautiful truck.
is pretty classy outfit. I bought it from a guy in Missoula, and he had an upholstery shop. So the seats inside are electric and
Oh, really?
everything else. But he had it built and then needed the money, and I got a screaming deal on it. But those are actually gold plated, 14 karat or some damn thing.
Wheels?
Spoked wheels.
Really?
And it's got a souped up 302, I believe it is.
These were really classy looking trucks, but yeah.
It's
So it's got a 223. Oh, that must have been original.
yeah, original. It's a 302. That's
Beautiful truck.
and in fact, when I got it, this fender had a little flaw in it, and I took it in and to a body shop in Missoula. It cost me $1,500 to match that paint and do that one fender.
One fender. Then you've got a couple little military vehicles, a Jeep and a 1-ton truck. Is that what that is?
Yeah. This is an original World War II.
I'm seeing a Corvair.
And the trailer, yeah.
We're coming up a ramp into another room, and we have a 63 Corvair convertible. Now, I've got a 64 Corvair.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Kind of a fun little car. This is a little 900 Monza.
Yeah, these were
the Corvair was air cooled. Chevrolet's only foray, I think, into air cool, but they went for several years. And Ralph Nader's the one that's name's always associated with the Corvair because he wrote a book at Unsafe at Any Speed.
That's right.
Which was later debunked. I don't know if you knew that.
I know.
The college, I can't remember where it was in '73 or something, took it through all the tests, and they figured out that Ralph Nader kind of stretched the truth on that one a little bit.
Yep.
But
it was the death of them.
It was a 37 Fiat Topolino.
Yeah, this one
That's kind of a cool little
belongs to a guy, and I would really like to get my hands on it and take it and restore it.
That's a cute little car. We're talking little car. This thing's smaller than a Volkswagen Bug by a bunch. And then we got a 74 City car. The most successful electric car from the standpoint of production quality has been the City car. It was built in Florida. The small 2-passenger car had rather strange styling, which now became typical of many small electrics. And it had 6-volt drivetrain, and it doesn't say how far it would go. The batteries can be fully charged 400 to 600 times and has a range of 50 miles between battery charges. So 1974, this little itty bitty car, I mean, this thing looks like half a gremlin.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have the capabilities of what the Detroit Electric in 1912 had.
Yeah.
And the Detroit Electric, as we've already talked, was a big car.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got the MG, the 1952 TD. Those are nice looking little cars. And then the Porsche 356A Coupe.
This is the dandy. This belongs to a guy, I think he's from Bozeman.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most valuable in here, practically.
Those old Porsches are worth quite a bit.
This particular one, it's at least a couple $100,000.
And then we've got something I've never seen before.
That's a
got a
1964 Corvette.
1964?
Uh-huh.
No.
See?
64.
It's actually a Corvette that a guy...
This is a Corvair? Corvette, right.
But
okay.
a guy built this car in 1984, I believe it was. And it was in the Corvette magazine as being, well, it was like a Jetson car. You remember the Jetsons?
The whole passenger passenger compartment hood lifts up like a bubble.
And that unlocks the doors. There's no locks on the doors. The hood holds the doors closed.
The thing that's really weird about this is it looks like the 1980 Corvette with the bubble back window and the lines up at the front and everything else look very similar, other than it's got a real sharp point to the nose. And there's been a lot of fiberglass work done to this thing.
Amazing. And then he put that 671 blower on it.
Yeah, the engine in this thing's just amazing. It's got a 327 in it. Does it say what the 365 horsepower? 327.
Without the blower.
I mean, it looks a lot like these 73s, well, 69 through 80 is what they were running this body style.
Corvette magazine did a big article on it when he built it in the 80s, and they came back here in the 90s or something. They're both magazines are there. And did another article on it right here, out here on the street, same magazine.
And this is owned by you now? Is it fun to drive?
I just drove it just a little bit and then put it in here. I bought it just for display. You can't even recognize what it is.
No.
But it runs. We had it running. And
then is this the pace car edition? Yes.
Yes.
78 Chevy pace car. 73 Corvette T-top. 71
That's the
convertible.
twin to the one that's up front being raffled. I had two of them. I had the yellow one and this one, and this one has the 4-speed. That one up there is an automatic.
Right.
They're both so beautiful.
66 Corvette.
So we're raffling it off.
67. Both of those, 66 and 67, are both convertibles. Here's a 67 coupe, silver, with a 427. That thing's got to move.
That's probably the nicest one in here. It's been totally restored to original.
Beautiful car.
And it's pretty nice.
Now, was this a single year model, the 67? Something happened with Corvette in 60.
They changed the suspension.
Is that what it was?
The whole front end is different. Whole different suspension.
I was thinking that there was a certain time period in the Corvette history there that was really a rarity to find, because there were so few of them made because of dialing up something different or body changes, but I wasn't sure.
They put a totally new front end and a different
61
suspension.
Corvette. And then we got the little, now this is a really interesting car. This is a BMW, and you enter the car by opening up the whole front end. This car's the size of a beach ball. It's bigger than a beach ball.
And
it's
when
a little two-passenger.
When you open it up, the steering column and everything comes
out with it.
So you can get two people in it, and then you fold it back in.
Then you pull that whole front end back around you. This thing's made by BMW.
Yeah.
And it had to be, you didn't worry. If you got in a wreck, you didn't have to worry about going to the hospital.
No.
I mean, this thing is small. It can't be any more. My arm spread will take in the whole car, 6 foot by 4 foot.
We drove it in here, and I bought it down in Scottsdale at an auction sale.
Okay. And it's only got 3 wheels. It's got 1 wheel in the back. Does it steer from the back?
You know, that's a strange story about that. My whole life, I wanted one of these since I was a kid, because they were 3-wheelers.
Right.
They are not 3-wheelers. There's 2 wheels in the back.
Oh, is there really?
And I didn't know that till I bought it.
Oh, but they're just super narrow.
Yeah. I always thought they were 3-wheelers. All my life I did until I bought
and
this.
Is it front steer? Front wheel steer?
No, it doesn't either. I'm not sure.
You almost think that thing could tip over, though, as short as those front, or as tight as those back wheels
Yeah.
are together.
They didn't go very fast, but I think they steer from the front.
Here at this museum, something that you don't see at any museum, a Ford van.
Yeah.
And the Volkswagen van maybe more so, but the old vans, after 1979, they just seem to have totally dropped off the earth. And
My wife,
I think they're cool as all get out. I love my vans.
Put Scooby-Doo on this one, I think.
Yes, she did. Yep. And this here's one that has the engine right between the seats.
Uh-huh.
Your feet are sitting out basically on the front bumper.
Hot to drive.
Yeah. But pretty cool looking. I like the vans.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll have to show you pictures of my van. I got one that I 70-ized really badly. It's a 1970 Ford, and I've got cheetah carpet in it. And I'll show you pictures. But it's fun. You go to car shows, and everybody looks at the Chevelles and the Camaros, and they're all ooh, ah, and then they come to the vans, and the cameras come out. They just shake their heads, and
kind of like these. That's
the Carmen Gias.
That's the most collectible VW.
This is the Carmen Ghia.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and they were pretty cool little cars, a little sporty looking.
We restored that one in our shop. In fact, looks like you got a flat tire, don't I?
Oh, yeah, you do. And then you got a dune buggy again, Volkswagen
buggy.
Powered. What is this? This is almost Mad Max. I like that.
It is
a Mad Max Volkswagen powered dune buggy.
The guy built it from Bozeman, and he built it for that reason, Mad Max. And then when he was getting up in age, he donated it to the museum before he died.
I guess they have a big Mad Max festival or something out in Southern Oregon or Northern Nevada or something every year. And it's kind of been on my radar to go to. It's not quite Burning Man, but I've always thought that it'd be a lot of fun to go see what people would come up with. Yeah, we've got a scooter collection here, Harley Davidson, and a couple little Vespas and Cushman scooters. And then the world's first personal watercraft, 1958 Vincent Amanda water scooter 200. It looks a lot like the modern day, what do they call those? Water, well, yeah, but what's the water, the personal watercraft. Anyway, jet skis, thank you very much. Nothing like having brain death here. Yeah, it looks a lot like the original jet ski, or like the jet skis now. You would stand up, it's got a small seat going down the middle, a little handlebar. Pretty cool looking little thing. It says that it went 20 to 25 miles an hour and weighed 125 pounds with a 5-horsepower motor. An old Tao Ford Museum. Okay.
Yeah, that's my first Harley Davidson, 1964, the year I graduated from high school. Last of the 6-volt kickstart.
Suicide shift? I didn't look.
No, this one had the foot shift, but it was a 6-volt, so it was a kickstart, and then the next year they went to the electric start.
Okay.
And then I have a Honda 100 I'm going to put back there. I just got through doing, and I'm doing a Harley Davidson snowmobile.
Oh, really? I didn't know. Everybody made snowmobiles back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s.
1970, I think it was.
Wow. Yeah, one of my big ambitions is I want to go to Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And why would a person want to go to those places? Because that's where everything was being built that was strange and whatever.
It was.
The Cushmans, they had tracksters that were tracked vehicles that go anywhere. They had all the major
hunting things, all the major snowmobiles.
Yeah.
Hardy Cat, Polaris, they were all in Minnesota.
Well, and then thousands of brands that you don't hear about anymore. You know, the Chaparrals and the Skarules, and there's so many. There was 100 snow machine manufacturers back at that time.
I used to race them back in the early 70s.
Okay.
Early 70s when they had the speed ovals.
Right. Okay, well, it looks like we've kind of covered most of your museum. I really appreciate your time, Shem, and the taking
problem.
it to run us through here and take a look at things. This has been fantastic. Your car collection is unbelievable. I'm so happy that you have it on display for people to see. And right here in Deer Lodge, Montana, right off of Interstate 90, easy access.
That's the kick my wife and I get out of it is people coming in and say, I learned to drive in that.
Yeah.
My dad had one of those.
Right.
Oh, I've always wanted one of those.
Yeah.
Right.
That's my favorite.
That's
Yeah, exactly.
and it's everybody has a different favorite, don't they?
Yeah. And in fact, people ask me, what's your favorite? And mine changes.
Oh, well, you told us today what your favorite was, but it might be different tomorrow.
The 55, 6, and 7s, they build them to compete in the Daytonas
Right.
with Ford and Chevy because they couldn't keep up. And they put that fin on the back of them. And then on the two front fenders, there's the little bubbles on the fenders.
Right.
And people think that's some kind of an air scoop. The fenders are cut out because that fin puts so much force on the front end that the tires actually come up through the fenders.
Oh, really?
And they could corner that car at 200 miles an hour.
Oh. So you're going to drive it? Or are you just going to
Oh,
park
I
it?
drove it. Yeah, I drove it. I've got it in another warehouse over on the other end of town. And yeah, I started up and drive it.
Have you tried to corner at 200?
No. but it could, and so it just, and they actually took them to court. Said that's against the law or against the rules to put a fin on the back.
I'll have to come back and see that one. Thanks again, Shem.
All
I
right.
really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to share with us. And the way I usually finish out is I say the world is full of wonders. Get out and explore and have a wonder-filled day.
Yeah, thank you.
All the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?